Welcome to this Tutor to You Sociology topic video for GCSE Sociology. In this series on the classic texts, we're going to look at Outsiders by Howard Becker. Howard Becker's Outsiders, published in 1963, is a landmark book in sociology. It explores the world of people who engage in behaviours considered deviant by society, such as drug use and other non-conforming actions. Becker wanted to understand how society labels people as outsiders and the effects of these labels. He approached his study from the perspective of labelling theory, a concept in sociology that examines how individuals are categorised and treated based on the labels society assigns to them. According to labelling theory, being labelled as deviant or an outsider can influence a person's self-identity and behaviour. Becker believed that deviance is not inherent in any act, but is instead a result of society's reactions and labels. Becker used a qualitative research method known as participant observation. He immersed himself in the lives of people he was studying, spending time with them, observing their behaviours and conducting interviews. This method allowed him to gain a deep understanding of their experiences and perspectives. His study primarily focused on two groups, marijuana users and jazz musicians, both considered deviant by mainstream society at the time. One of Becker's key findings was that deviance is not a quality inherent in certain behaviours, but is created by society through labelling. For example, smoking marijuana is considered deviant in some cultures, but acceptable in others. What matters is not the act itself, but how society perceives and reacts to it. Becker described how individuals come to be labelled as deviant. This process often starts with an initial act that violates social norms, followed by the reaction of others, such as parents, teachers, or law enforcement. If society reacts strongly, the person is labelled as deviant, which can lead to further deviant behaviour as the person internalises the label. Being labelled as deviant can have significant consequences for individuals. Becker found that once labelled, people often face social exclusion and discrimination. This can limit their opportunities and push them further into deviant roles. For example, a person labelled as a drug user might find it hard to get a job or be accepted by mainstream society, leading them to continue to use drugs or associate with others who share the same label. Becker's focus was on subcultures or groups that developed their own norms and values distinct from those of mainstream society. He found that people labelled as deviant often form or join subcultures where their behaviours are accepted or even celebrated. For instance, jazz musicians often create tight-knit communities with their own rules and support systems. Becker also introduced the concept of moral entrepreneurs, individuals or groups who campaign to create and enforce new rules and labels. These people play a significant role in defining what is considered deviant. For example, politicians or activists might push for laws against drug use, thereby labelling drug users as criminal. One criticism of Becker's work is that it places too much emphasis on the role of labels in creating deviance. Critics argue that this approach downplays the importance of the actual behaviours and choices of individuals. They believe that some behaviours are harmful or problematic, regardless of social labels. Critics also point out that Becker's labelling theory does not fully address the role of power dynamics in the labelling process. Powerful groups in society such as politicians, law enforcement and the media have a significant influence on what is labelled as deviant. Becker's work is seen as not adequately exploring how these power dynamics shape social reactions and labels. Becker's study also focused on specific groups such as marijuana users and jazz musicians, which some critics argue limits the generalisability of its findings. They suggest that his conclusions might not apply to other forms of deviance or different cultural contexts. More diverse studies would be needed to confirm the broader applicability of his theories. And since Outsiders was published in 1963, society's views on many forms of deviance have changed. For example, marijuana use is now legal in many places. Critics argue that the shifting perceptions of deviance over time mean that some of Becker's findings might be outdated. Contemporary studies are necessary to understand how modern societies label and react to deviant behaviours. Howard Becker's Outsiders provides a fascinating look at how society creates and reacts to deviance through labelling. His work highlights the importance of social reactions and the consequences of being labelled as an outsider. Despite facing criticisms for overemphasising labels, neglecting power dynamics and having a limited scope, Becker's study remains influential in sociology. For GCSE students, Outsiders teaches us what society considers deviant can change over time, and that these labels can significantly impact on people's lives. It encourages us to think critically about how we view and treat those who are different from the norm. That concludes this Tutor to You Sociology topic video for GCSE Sociology. In this video we looked at another classic text, Outsiders by Howard Becker. Thanks for watching.